Welcome, Dr. Pawluk.
Thank you, Erica, for having me and allowing me to share with your audience, your tribe.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before we started recording, I was like, I had heard an interview with you years ago, and I've heard of PEMFs. I've had clients because I've trained professional athletes, and they're like, Erica, what do you know about PEMFs? And I'm like, I just personally haven't had a chance to experience them or really do a deep dive into them. I'm familiar with them. I don't know if our audience really is. So let's start there. Can you just explain to everybody what PEMF is?
All right. So pulsed electromagnetic fields are magnetic fields that are basically pulsing. And people are very familiar with and aware of often EMFs, which we consider to be hazardous or at risk. So the distinction between them is important because that helps you to understand what PEMFs actually do and how they work. So EMFs, let's define that first. EMFs, I consider EMFs to be, they're electromagnetic fields, but they're environmental magnetic fields. They're in the environment. They're cell phones, cell towers, microwaves, routers, Wi-Fi. They're all over the place. The most hazardous part of the EMF environment, for example, like 5G, that everybody's worried about. And then there'll be 6G, and who knows how many Gs there are going to be later. So basically, these are very high frequency magnetic fields. And they are electromagnetic, like sound is electromagnetic as well, and light is, and color is. So these are part of the electromagnetic spectrum, but they're extremely high frequency. So they're designed for communication primarily, right? So they're not designed for human use. Humans are sort of in the way, right? There are other purposes for that. And so what happens then is that the EMFs are, because of their signal characteristics, the wavelengths are extremely short, very, very tiny, right? And what they are broadcast out into the environment. You know, they just shoot out of an antenna into the environment, and they essentially go on into infinity. Actually, what they do is they bounce up through the ionosphere, through the capsule of the Earth, Earth's atmosphere. Now, because they're short wavelengths, they get absorbed in the body. They get absorbed in anything, material, whether it's plant life, animal life, well, grass is a plant life, but basically everything absorbs it. And that's the basis behind microwave ovens, right? You use tiny little wavelengths, high power wavelengths that are blasting this material. And because they blast and they get absorbed, they create heat.
Okay.
So microwave oven is a perfect example of creating heat with microwaves. So a cell phone, for example, if you're next to the cell phone, if you're next to a cell phone tower, you're getting a higher concentration of the magnetic field. So it's more powerful, and therefore it causes, like a microwave oven, it causes more heating in the body than if a cell tower is 5 miles away. Okay, you're still going to get the signal 5 miles away, but it's going to be a weaker signal typically. And we know that. Our signals vary depending on how close we are to a transmitter. So when you have a cell phone to your head, the example I use is that you'll notice that the longer you keep it there, the redder the ear becomes. Now, you won't see it because you got hair covering your ears.
Well, I don't put my cell phone to my ear either.
Well, you
Speaker.
You shouldn't. And occasionally that's fine, but not on a regular basis.
Right.
So, but if you do that, if you put your cell phone to your ear and you hold it there for 10 or 15 minutes while you're having a conversation, when you lift the cell phone off, the ear is going to be quite red.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you look at the other ear, it's not as red. Okay, this ear is getting cooked. It's not as powerful as a microwave oven. It doesn't have the wattage of a microwave oven, but it still ends up heating the tissue. And in fact, some studies have shown that people who hold cell phones to their heads for hours at a time throughout the day, basically that's their work phone, there's an increased incidence of cancer in the head.
Yeah, and there's they're seeing it too with women that hold their cell phones like in their bra, right? Or if you hold it in your pocket all the time, right? They're showing
a cell phone in your bra, but it has to be on airplane mode.
Okay.
Right? Because
which no one ever does.
which nobody does much. Now, if you have I've had a cell phone on my bedside table because of the clock. I want to use it as a clock or an alarm or something, but it should be on airplane mode.
Yeah, that I do. Airplane mode at night. So I have my alarm, but making sure we're not actually running any EMFs from the cell phone and unplugging the internet.
Because it's sitting there, open and receiving signal. And it may be receiving signals. And so it's actually active. It's just that the signal is not coming to you. If you walk down the street with your cell phone and you're looking for Wi-Fi signals, you're finding Wi-Fi signals all over the place, right? From all sorts of sources. Well, so that's happening at night while the phone's sitting next to your bedside, even though that signal didn't come into your cell phone number or your messaging, your SMS or whatever. It's still active. It's still working. So anyway, that's EMF. So the signals are the wavelengths are extremely short and they're blasting into the environment. We call that open loop. So basically it's open. It doesn't come back. A loop means it's coming back, but this is open loop, which means it doesn't come back. Pulsed magnetic fields are made by current flowing through a wire. So the thumb is the current, is the wire, and that's the flow of the current. And the current is basically going like this. It's pulsing at a specific frequency. So in our environment, it's 60 hertz, 60 cycles per second. And so that means the magnetic field is going like this. But it opens and it contracts. It opens and it contracts. This is called a closed loop. So basically the magnetic field does not go anywhere outside that wire except when it's like opening up like that. So that's a closed loop system. So there's a big distinction. They're not wavelengths because they're not shooting off into space, right? It's a pulse rate. And the other one is a tiny short wavelength, which pulses into the environment and absorbs into the body. Now, PEMFs, because they go like that, they go through anything that is not metal. Anything.
Okay.
It'll go through wood. It'll go through leather. It'll go through the walls, right? But it won't go through metal. And when it hits metal, it basically bends around the metal. The metal doesn't stop it or block it or completely absorb it. It just bends around. So the PEMFs are designed for therapeutic use.
Yeah.
They're limited, right? You have to sit next to the coil to get the benefit from it. So that magnetic field goes into the body and comes back out. Into the body, comes back out. It doesn't keep going. That's an important distinction. So that means that there's no wavelength involved, really, but there is a repetition rate, a pulse rate, but there's no wavelength. That means no absorption. So the magnetic fields that we are producing with pulsed magnetic field systems, magnetic therapy systems, are going completely through the body. In and out, in and out. So they don't get a chance to stay in the body. They don't get a chance to do any heating in the body. A lot of people complain they don't feel anything from the magnetic therapy system. So if you get a weak magnetic therapy system, then you're not going to feel anything. Maybe feel a little warmth as it opens up the blood vessels in the back of the body. So those are the two major distinctions. So PEMFs are extraordinarily safe.
Okay.
And there are lots of PEMF devices, different types of PEMF devices that have been approved by the federal government for specific indications, like healing fractures, like doing treatment across the brain for depression. Even extremely high intensity magnetic fields, higher than most people tend to use with magnetic fields, do no harm to the brain. So they're extraordinarily safe.
So yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some of the comments, you mentioned depression and fractures. What are some of the other common, kind of ailments or things that people suffer from that you've seen miraculous improvement or recoveries from? I know you've got some amazing stories. Like, I love these, like almost like miracle stories where from the medical community, you're like, oh, that shouldn't be possible. Yet in the holistic health space, we're like, there's amazing stuff happening.
It's more common.
Yeah.
And magnetic field therapy, along with holistic health in general,
Mhm.
makes anything we do in holistic health work better.
Yeah.
Sometimes double, sometimes triple, sometimes significantly better.
Wow.
So what happens is the body has to do the work. Right? We're giving the body nutrients, and those nutrients are used by the body to do the work of the body. So, for example, we have 100 trillion cells in our body. 100 trillion approximately. Every single cell has about 2,000 chemical processes per second.
Yeah,
That's a lot. That's a lot of busyness.
Yeah.
Right? And then it needs nutrients, it needs support, and also it needs energy to be able to have all that activity. So PEMFs, because they have about 27 different ways that they work in the body. And in my book, just coming out now, it's called Supercharge Your Health with PEMF Therapy. So that's one of the reasons for this interview, is because this book helps to explain to you what it is magnetic fields do to some extent in a relatively simpler way. And it gives you the reasons how magnetic fields act in the body. And then it tells you, it gives advice on about 80 different health conditions that magnetic field therapy works for. So it's hard to say what is the best thing that a magnetic therapy system will work for, because the answer is it depends on your problem.
Right. Because I have a specific one to ask you about, because I hear from a lot of the ladies in my audience that they are tired. They're tired. It's low energy, and obviously I know there's a multiple of reasons why that could be, but can you speak to what PEMFs do from an energy perspective? I know I've heard you talk about like ATP production and all of that, which is, having an exercise science background, that's always a fun conversation to have.
So magnetic field therapy stimulates mitochondria. And mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. They produce the ATP. That's where the ATP gets produced. Right? All over the body. Any cell in the body has ATP production going on through the mitochondria. And some cells in the body clearly produce a lot more ATP than others. So for example, the heart, the liver produces a surprising amount of ATP. And every time you have an injury, every time you have inflammation, you have a burst of ATP production. Because now why do you have a burst of ATP production with an injury?
It's got to go heal it.
It's got to heal it.
Yeah.
So the body responds right away and says, okay, let's drive energy into that tissue, into that area, so that we can begin the process of healing that tissue. And that's called acute inflammation. So magnetic fields then increase ATP by between 100 to 600%.
Wow. So we all need to go get our PEMF mat and lay on it just to improve our energy.
Improve the
recovery. I'm assuming it works amazingly well for exercise recovery.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. I mean, I had an athlete that I worked with who was the number 3 golf driver in the world. So they have golf driving competitions. How far can you hit the ball, right? So he was number 3 in the world. He did magnetic therapy before he did competition. He did magnetic therapy right after competition. And he was doing it every single day. In fact, there's a story about health and energy recovery with athletes. A friend of mine was a medical doctor for an Olympic team. And he would be at the Olympics, and they'd be doing tryouts, they'd be doing preliminaries, they'd be doing competition to see what level they can be at to compete. And then they finally have the actual competitions. But he discovered that the Eastern Europeans came back the next day like they were robots. Our athletes took 2 to 3 days to recover. They were back like robots. So he walked past their camp, where they were, their area where they were doing whatever they were doing, resting, etc., prepping. He saw them laying in magnetic tubes. And that's not considered doping.
It's so interesting, right? There's so much cool, like holistic stuff out there that really can improve our health and our function and recovery. I think recovery is so under talked about right? I'm always talking to my ladies because so many of them over exercise as we get a little bit older. Moms are raising kids, having babies, and working, all just pushing themselves to the limit.
And not resting enough to be able
Yes,
to recover the energy.
exactly.
Right. So PMFs can do that, but there's a downside to that, because
Okay.
you can make it feel so much better
That you overdo
and
it even more.
you do even more.
Yeah.
And as people ask me what are the major side effects of PEMF therapy, and I say that you want to put on a cape.
I mean, it sounds awesome. I mean, who doesn't want that, right?
Okay, well, I say that's fine. You'll have the urge to put on a cape, and you can put on a cape. I don't care. Put on a cape if it makes you feel better. But don't try to jump over anything tall.
Well, yes.
All right. Now, so magnetic therapy has a limit, because the reason that magnetic therapy has a limit is that magnetic therapy is not doing the job. The body's doing the job. The magnetic therapy fields are basically a stimulus to the body to increase ATP, to increase energy, to improve circulation, reduce inflammation, stimulate stem cells, all the healing processes and so on. All these things that magnetic fields are doing, they're actually giving a non-specific stimulus to the body. It's not specific. You don't have a magnetic field for pain. You don't have a magnetic field for cramps. You don't have a magnetic field for circulation. You don't have a magnetic field for skin, right? It's one type of magnetic field. And the body takes that signal and says, okay, I need it for this. So I'm going to use it for that. And so because magnetic fields have about 27 different actions in the body, it's the body that decides what actions it's going to use, what actions it needs. So I may say, I want to improve my skin. But the body says, nah, we have some inflammation that we got to deal with. We have some stem cells we have to stimulate. We have some circulation to improve. So the body's going to basically decide. So once you start using the magnetic fields on a regular basis, it just balances everything. It does this. It's the generalized stimulus. So the body has to be able to do this work. So when you talk about the things that magnetic fields can do, so you want it like a story, right?
I love stories.
Moms can appreciate this.
Okay.
In my second book called Power Tools for Health, I have a picture of a child, a 3-year-old child, and hope nobody drops off their chair or vomits or whatever when I say this. But this child, 3-year-old, cut off the end of her thumb in a door jamb. Very, very sharp door jab. Just cut it right off. So the family called me right away, and the surgeon wanted to clean it all up and put a graft on to cover the wound. That's what surgeons do. So I'd heard stories that in the UK, up to about age 11, if it's past that first knuckle, first joint, then you can have the chance of regenerating. So I said,
wow.
Okay, what have we got to lose?
Yeah.
So they got a PEMF system, and they started using it on this 3-year-old child, an hour to an hour and a half a day. So you can see the pictures in my Power Tools for Health book. You can see where they've had the suture marks where they put the graft back on. It was purple, it was black. As you can imagine, there's no blood supply.
Right.
It's sheared off. So they sewed it back on again, an hour to an hour and a half a day. 12 weeks later, she's regrowing her nail.
Wow. And so, and you're sitting on, like, her body's just sitting on the mat.
No,
she has to put a coil around the thumb. So it is more like specific to that area. Yeah. That is amazing to think that the body, I mean, the body is so amazing, right? I'm always saying this, and that's why I love these conversations, because you never know what's out there that could really transform someone's health, and of all ages. Like, that's fascinating to think that that's even possible.
Well, and it stimulates the body. So one other example is the government has approved magnetic devices for healing fractures that won't heal. So usually within 12 weeks or so, you can take the cast off, and you go on about your business, right?
Right, yeah.
So the body's healed it to a point where you can actually take the cast off. The purpose of the cast is to prevent you from moving the fracture site. It's not healing anything. Your body's doing the healing.
Right, yeah. It's just
you're protecting it.
Yeah, keeping it from re-injury.
Moving it, and so that doesn't heal itself. Well, after 6 months, if a fracture hasn't healed, it's called a non-union. There's no union. of the fracture. And as a result, that's a disaster. Because then you try all kinds of things to get it to stimulate, to heal and regenerate. And most things that we use to do that are invasive. They're surgical.
Yeah. Do you tend to see this in like women or people with osteoporosis?
Osteoporosis is one of the most common reasons for non-unions, because they don't have the bone density that you need to be able to heal the bone properly. So the government has approved small magnetic devices to heal these non-unions. So you could have a non-union that's been there for 7 years. You start magnetic field therapy, and within 6 months to 12 months, that fracture is healed.
That's incredible. That's amazing.
You may have to do it for 8 or 12 hours a day.
It's a commitment, but if it heals something, sometimes we have to look at what's important to you in life. And I love bringing this conversation up. It's like, what is most important to you? And I always say, like, your health should really be at the top, because if we don't have our health, then we can't do the things in life that we really want to do or show up for our loved ones and our family and all of that.
You can't replace missing parts. You can't replace parts that are like a bone-on-bone arthritis of the knee. And we're starting to see that very frequently in women in their 60s and 70s, right?
So I have a question with this, right? With osteoporosis, with the bone-on-bone, what I'm assuming, but I'm going to ask you for confirmation, is if someone starts to use PEMF before, right, we start getting these ailments and much more aging, that this can help improve bone density, because obviously that's what it's doing with someone who has an injury. But it's a lot easier on the preventative side, or starting this stuff when at the first sight or slight of like noticing, things are starting to kind of go awry, or my knee's starting to bother me. I mean, I'm a big one that teaches women you have to fix your alignment, which is what I love to teach. But I'm always all about adding other tools that help amplify all the work that you are doing.
Absolutely. Anything you do is going to be made to work better, faster.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah.
So with bone density, women start losing bone density in their mid-40s.
Okay.
Why? Because you have less testosterone, you have less progesterone because you're not ovulating, or very little.
Once you get to menopause, which some women are hitting menopause in their late 30s or even. So we have to correlate with that. Hormonal shifts are going to change bone density.
Not to mention having a hysterectomy or having your ovaries removed, in which case you're going to have it happen much faster. Yeah. So what we find, what you're saying is absolutely correct. If you started doing magnetic field therapy for all the reasons that magnetic fields work, which means the whole of you, right? Then you're gonna help to prevent that bone density drop. Now, if you're discovered at age 50, because we recommend screening, I recommend screening for bone density at age 50. Why is it important? A lot of women don't do that because they don't want to know.
Right. Ignorance is bliss, which is so not true.
well, there's a risk with this, a big risk.
Yeah.
And the ignorance is bliss. The reason people deny that, women deny that, is they heard all these horror stories about the medications for bone density.
Okay.
And they don't work that well. I really don't like the medications for bone density. The only one that I really support at all is Forteo, which helps to build bone. None of the other medication for bone density help to build bone. They just decrease the rate of breakdown of the bone. So they don't help you really fundamentally. But magnetic field therapy does both. Helps you to slow down the breakdown, but it also helps you, as we said, to build bone. Right? So if you started it in your 40s, you will not lose the bone, because once you've lost bone, even the medication don't do a good job of recovering lost bone. So the earlier you start, as you say, the better. If you have osteopenia already, you better be running to a PEMF system. If you have osteoporosis, you gotta have a system.
Yeah, you got to be doing something for sure.
And you need a whole body magnetic system, because it's not just the bones in your back and your hip, which is mostly what we test for. You got to do your whole skeleton. What are the most common fractures in women with osteopenia or osteoporosis?
It's a hip fracture.
Oh.
Oh, no?
Oh. The hip and the spine are the disastrous fractures.
Okay.
They're the
Yeah.
bad ones, right? The wrist,
Oh,
collarbone,
I can see that.
the feet,
Smaller. Hmm.
smaller bones. Exactly.
Which starts to decrease then their mobility, which I talk about mobility all the time. And we don't think about that in our 30s or 40s or even 50s. But I mean, I've worked with such an array of clients over the years that it is amazing if we don't pay attention to our mobility until it's like we start really having problems. Health really goes downhill too. So like it's all correlated, and I get so passionate about this stuff because I see the difference and I see how someone can really change their life even if they're already having a whole list of things going on with their body, right? I'm of the belief, as I'm sure you are too, it's never too late to start to do something about it, because at a minimum you could at least like kind of stall things, and I would assume we do a lot of improving. Yeah,
The earlier the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things magnetic therapy does not do, it doesn't raise the dead.
Right. So it's not anti-aging is what you're saying.
I'm sorry about that. But it's not just about being dead. It's dead tissue or a dead organ. The farther, the longer, the more you let that problem go before you can fix it, the harder it is to recover it. Because the body's doing the work of healing. So for example, when you're 75 and you have to heal something, you need building blocks, you need stem cells, you need circulation improvements, you need nutritional recovery, if you will. So there's all sorts of things you have to do that have a lot more work to do, plus the fact that your body just doesn't have the capacity anymore. So a 3-year-old healing a thumb is not going to happen in a 70-year-old.
Our cellular rejuvenation, has dramatically declined. And so it's just not as possible. I have a question for you, Dr. Pawluk. So I love talking about fascia, and I don't know if you have any specific things to share. I'm thinking of all the amazing things that this could be doing for our fascial system, which is so integrated, and the deeper and deeper you get into the fascial system, right? It's around our organs. Wraps around all of our nerves. It goes through our muscles, over our muscles. Like it really is what I feel is such a part of what connects everything in the body together.
And why we call it connective tissue.
Right. And so I'm thinking that this is specifically to call out fascia, right? So also from a recovery perspective or, a strengthening perspective, that this electromagnetic therapy could really, really improve our fascial system because of how integrated it so is with everything.
So magnetic fields increase the production of collagen.
There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Hyaluronic acid. They increase the production of something called GAGs, which also help to form the support structures.
Okay, so I have a question about GAGs. I've heard of them, I've read about them, but tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, that we have a lot of GAGs in our brain. Is that correct?
Everywhere in the body.
Okay, everywhere in the body, not just in the brain.
See, the brain is actually considered a connective tissue in a sense.
Okay.
It's a fibrous tissue, and your brain has to heal itself as well. But when we think of fascia, we think of ligaments and tendons. But as you say, there are fascial elements around all the organs of the body. So we have an envelope covering our heart. We have an envelope covering our intestinal tract and our kidneys and our liver and our brain and the spinal cord. All of these are coverings that all relate back to something called fibroblasts. Mm-hmm. Fibroblasts form the skin. So when you have a wound, one of the first things that migrates into the wound is fibroblasts, because their job is to try to heal that wound, to make the wound knit back together again. That's what the scar becomes. So all the connective tissue that you're talking about, the more rigid it is, the less blood supply it has, the less benefit you're going to get from magnetic field therapy. So if it has better blood supply, if it's surrounded by organs and tissues that have good blood supply, it's much more likely to regenerate. And PEMFs, because they reach completely through the body, nothing stops the magnetic field. as I said, right? So if you do other things to stimulate connective tissue, like red light, like infrared, like laser, all of these work very superficially. They don't go deep into the body. They're not going to heal a brain.
Right. Yeah.
So if you have a concussion, magnetic field therapy works fantastic for concussion. Almost all neurological problems
We talk about that. We talk about that a little bit more because I know with having a lot of moms in my audience and kids who, as they get older, might be playing certain sports and have concussions. So I'm assuming this is something the sooner you can do it, the better. Is it ever too late with brain injury?
Not really, because the damage from concussion lasts for decades. And in fact, actually, the longer you go without getting adequate treatment, the more likely you are to develop dementia following concussion, right? We see this with athletes, so professional athletes. When they're 20 years after their careers, they're already starting to lose significant memory function. So yes, magnetic field therapy can, if you do it right away. There was a study done on mice. I don't know if people like mice or rats. Which would you rather? Let's talk about rats.
I'm indifferent.
Study done on rats. Nobody likes rats. Mice, people like mice, but they're scared of mice, but they like them. They're okay with mice. And when they dropped a weight on their heads. Now their skulls are not that thick compared to a human skull. So our skulls are more like coconut, right? And a mouse skull is probably more like a tomato skin. It's a lot thinner because it has to be malleable, it has to put itself through small spaces, right? So what happens then is that when they did the injury to the brain, they evaluated the brain and discovered almost immediately significant levels of inflammation. So not only did it damage the tissue, but it had a lot of inflammation, and the inflammation is what then causes the damage to the brain. And that damage, the inflammation then causes swelling of the tissues. And when you have swelling of tissues, you can't get blood through that tissue. And what do you need blood for? Oxygenation, and to provide the food supply to the tissue, et cetera, to provide the anti-inflammatory cells to the tissues. So you have to get the swelling down. So you have to improve circulation, get the swelling down, and then you begin the healing process of the tissue. So what they found, in fact, that pulse magnetic fields actually reduce the inflammation if you do that right after the concussion. If you do it on the field at the time of the concussion, that's the best place to start.
So are we seeing this a lot more in, these sports such as football, that they're not doing it yet? You'd think they have it.
There is so much politics involved.
I'm sure. But okay, so for those
and corporate interests and money and just a lot of
it slows down some of this awesome stuff that's out there that we should be getting out to people. So okay, I have a question. So I know
if they have kids with concussions, they should be doing magnetic field therapy, but you're not going to go out and buy a magnetic field after the concussion.
Right.
Ideally, you should already have a system in your home. When I spoke to Dr. Mercola about magnetic field therapy, he says clearly everybody should have a system in their home.
Of course. It's definitely a health investment for sure. It's on my list. And now I'm totally sold into it. So it's on my list.
Yes, magnetic field therapy at your home.
Yeah. I have the, far infrared sauna, red light, vibration plate. I have my, so many good things.
For all that.
Oh, well, I didn't know as much about PEMF then. I got sauna and I got sold on the far infrared sauna when I was dealing with mold toxicity and healing from that, which was necessity.
It helps your body to excrete.
Yeah. But no, it's really neat to understand and learn more about this for the body. It's pretty cool.
Far infrared is good for that purpose, but it's skin deep. It only works skin deep. And remember now, beauty is not just skin deep.
So how can PEMF help with detoxification? Does it go, I'm assuming you're saying it's penetrating a lot deeper, so we can detoxify potentially even better if we were to do, say, PEMF along with like far infrared sauna to really get that stuff out of the cells if we're holding toxicity of any degree.
You can combine all of them, absolutely. But what I found after 30 years of working with magnetic field therapies, and I've investigated and used many of these other therapies, you have to pay $4,000 for this machine, you have to pay $6,000 for that machine, and $2,000 for that machine. And pretty soon you have a house full of machines and everybody wonders where the space went. So then what you have to do is just,
Right.
okay, fine. I have found out the hard way is that magnetic field therapy is the best value.
Okay.
Because it's not just skin deep. You know, it goes right through the body completely. That means you can heal anything that comes along. You're going to have a tool that's going to be much more valuable to you in many, many, many ways that other therapies don't do. But they combine well because infrared is frequencies. They're very high, very short frequencies. So they basically don't penetrate the body that deep. But because they're different frequencies and magnetic fields are different wavelengths or different pulse rates, the two combine really well. So you can use them together. But if you're going to rely on one piece of equipment for the rest of your life,
yeah,
it's going to benefit everybody in the house, including the dog, the cat, and the plants.
Oh, that's interesting. So we can use it on our animals as well.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely love it.
Well, they're so sensitive to energies. Like, I mean, it's always so interesting with animals. I have a dog and 2 cats, and it's just always so, I don't know, so interesting to watch them and how they interact. And they can always sense when something's off or, you know, whatever it is, right? It's so interesting.
And I hear this all the time. When people are laying on their magnetic pad, the animal comes on, lays on top of them, or lays right next to them. Mm-hmm. And usually the animal will stay there for the time that you're doing the treatment. And when they've had enough, they just walk away.
Yeah. So I have a question. Yeah. So I have a question because is there anything that's, you know, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be awesome if everybody could get a PEMF machine or have access to one. But for those that like it's absolutely out of the budget right now, are there anything that they can do such as like earthing, grounding, getting your feet in the earth? Like, does that kind of replicate a little bit? No, it's still good for you to do that though, right? From an energy
there's no harm.
perspective.
There's no harm, but it's not going to help you with your diabetes.
Well, yeah,
or your diabetic neuropathy or your back pain or your migraine headaches. So no, it's healthy for you. And this is what humans, the legacy of humans on the planet, before we had equipment like PEMFs, we relied on the natural sources of healing, and earthing and grounding do that. So they have a value. If you put a magnetic copper bracelet on your wrist, right, well, that copper metal, the copper ions, interact with the sweat, the electrolytes in the sweat, and the minerals in the sweat under the bracelet. And that produces a small amount of current.
Oh, interesting.
Very tiny amount of current.
Okay.
And that current stimulates the acupuncture system. Because the acupuncture system is an electrical system. That's been proven.
Right. Yeah.
And magnetic fields interact with the acupuncture system as well. So one of the benefits you get with a whole body magnetic therapy system is you're doing acupuncture every day.
Which is awesome. And without needles. I mean,
without needles.
I love acupuncture, but I don't love needles.
And you're doing it superficially with acupuncture on the skin, on the surface, and you're doing the tissues and the cells directly deep in the body. So you're having all these different layers and levels of what the magnetic fields can do. We're basically, to some extent, replacing other technologies. Now, acupuncture is more potent by putting a specific needle into a specific point and attaching some current to it. That's very potent. So that can be combined with magnetic field therapy to produce even better actions. So yes, you could use other technologies, but the best value comes from the magnetic field therapy. Now, in the book, it's Supercharge Your Health with PEMF Therapy. Mm-hmm. I give people guidance on the kinds of magnetic systems that are available.
Okay, I was going to ask you that because I know there's so many ones. So we can look in there and help determine, like, if we just want more of a preventative one, there's a recommendation for that. And if we're looking at certain, you know, for certain ailments, concussions or whatever it might be, then you're going to have different recommendations for that because it's confusing.
Well, absolutely. If you have, if you're interested, we'll give you a link for you to click on a download. You can do on your PC or whatever, your computer, and get a download of the 80 conditions that are covered in the book.
That'd be great. I would love that. Yeah.
In addition to that, in the book, we talk about, do you need like that little girl with her thumb? She didn't need a whole body magnetic system. She needed a higher intensity local magnetic system. But if you have scoliosis, or you have, let's say, for example, Ehlers EDS or hypermobility disorder, then you have all kinds of problems with the mechanics of your back, right? And you're going to get arthritis, guaranteed.
And this helps with that because we do have clients for sure that have that. That's a pretty common question I actually get.
Very, very common. Scoliosis and just general arthritis, autoimmune disorders of the back and spine. So then you need a whole body magnetic system, just like you do for osteoporosis or osteopenia. So then what kind of whole body system do you get? So here's a problem, and probably a lot of your viewers, listeners, may already have one of these. There are devices called like the Beamer and the IMRS and the QRS. They are very low. They work. They have a benefit. They have an effect, but they're very expensive for what you get. So many of these devices that are sold through multi-level marketing are about 1 Gauss. So Gauss is Gauss. It's a measure of magnetic field intensity.
Okay.
The Earth's magnetic field is about half a Gauss. For osteoporosis, I recommend magnetic systems that are probably about 6,000 or 7,000 Gauss.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you really need something much stronger to make your time worthwhile.
And to go deeper into the body with a sufficient amount of energy throughout the whole body. That's why earthing and grounding and so on are nice.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not strong enough to do any kind of significant deep work. For health maintenance and just to balance your energy patterns, just like you would with acupuncture for prevention, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a significant health issue like scoliosis, osteoporosis, spinal injuries, head injuries, the list goes on, the 80-element list that I mentioned, then you need something stronger. You need something that's going to do a lot better work deep in the body. Because one of the most important things to remember about magnetic fields, how far does sound go?
I don't know.
Well, it's loudest right at the source, at the speaker.
Okay, right. And it's going to get quieter the farther it goes.
And the farther you go. And the way it gets quieter is it doesn't go like this, it goes like this.
It goes down and out. Okay.
Very rapid.
Yeah.
And that's called the inverse square law. So what happens then is that a 4,000 Gauss magnetic field will be down to 15 Gauss, 1.5, in 4 inches.
Oh, wow.
4,000 Gauss in 4 inches will be only 15 Gauss. So if you're trying to treat across the brain, if you have a concussion, you need a magnetic field that's going to give you 15 Gauss across the whole brain.
Okay.
All right. So what people do then is they don't understand that principle of getting the right magnetic field for the system. It's because the depth of the field has to be adjusted for based on the intensity that you need.
So you really want a machine that you can set quite a variety, a variable of settings for depending on what you're treating.
And particularly the depth. And so what I found after 30 years of working with magnetic fields, it's a lot less about the frequency.
More about the depth.
It's more about the intensity, which then relates to the depth.
Okay, gotcha.
So the intensity is what drives the energy production of the body. So if the magnetic field no magnetic field goes straight up. They're all sloped because it takes time for it to go from 0 to 100, just like a car. It's never going to go from 0 to 100 in a microsecond.
Right.
Right? It takes time.
Yes.
So what happens then is that slope and the intensity then determines the amount of energy produced in the body. And that's called, so we said we wouldn't do formulas, that's called Faraday's law.
Okay.
So that's a law of physics. So inverse square law is a law of physics, and Faraday's law is a law of physics. So the higher the magnetic field, the faster it reaches its peak, the more energy production in the body.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're starting off with with 1 Gauss magnetic field, how much energy are you going to produce?
Not a lot.
1 Gauss magnetic field.
Not as much as 6,000 or 8,000.
Almost nothing. It's going to be acting right at the skin itself, and it's not even going to go that deep into the skin because it's still 1 Gauss.
Okay. Yeah.
So doing that calculation, and in the book we have tables that show you the depth you need at different levels into the body.
So you have shortcutted it for all of us and everyone listening who's like, okay, wait, you just like lost me talking about numbers. So it's all there in your book, which is so exciting. I'm going to be for sure have to get your book, and put this on my wish list here to get myself a PEMF machine here one of these days, because it sounds amazing and I've known of it for years. So I'm so excited to get to chat with you and learn so much more. So will you just share, is there any last thing you wanted to share with everyone listening, and then let everybody know where they can reach out to you, find out more? I know you offer lots of the machines as well, because you've vetted them. I've already done the homework. I can tell you the ones.
Exactly. I know which ones do what.
Yeah.
So there's two more things we could offer your listeners. One is that, and you'll provide these links for people.
Absolutely. Yep.
There's a link for ordering the book.
Yes. The book sounds amazing.
The third one is that for people who are serious, if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, you better be serious. And then you may want to get a consultation, or you can just call us at drpawluk.com. So drpawluk.com. If you call the 866 number that's on the page, then you'll be able to get to us and either have a conversation with somebody who could guide you about what would be best for you, or you do a consultation. If you're much more complicated, if you have cancer, if you have multiple health issues, you have toxicity and Lyme disease and CFS and all that, well, then you're probably going to need a consultation. So you can get a link there to fill out a questionnaire to get a consultation. drpawluk.com is a resource you have available now. Just go on to drpawluk.com, and I guarantee you will not be underwhelmed.
Oh no, absolutely not. So much to learn about all of this. It's fascinating.
There's a lot of information there on a lot of topics. There's some basic education about magnetic field therapy. There are podcasts and there are blogs and there are videos. So there's lots of ways to learn about magnetic field therapy. And many people do that. They hear about it, or they'll go to one of these multi-level distributors and say, okay, that's interesting, but it's multi-level. I'm not sure about that. And besides, if you start to have a deep discussion with any distributors, they don't know enough anyway. So then you say, okay, fine, let me go do some more research. And people go on Google and they research PEMF or PEMF devices or PEMF therapy, and we often come up higher up in the list. You click on that, you go to the website, tons of information. If that's still overwhelming and you still have significant needs, then you could always complete a questionnaire and get a consultation.
I love it. It's great that you guys offer those consultations so people have somewhere to turn, because
they're free.
That's great. Yeah. Because I think so many times people feel lost, because sometimes I work with people who have a lot of health things going on and they've been to multiple doctors and this and that, and they just feel like, oh my gosh, I've done all the things, I don't even know where to turn or what to do and all of that. And I always say, if you haven't tried something like this yet, it's definitely worth trying, because like, what do you have to lose? There's no downfall to trying PEMF.
No, there is none. And so I usually recommend that people, if they're going to make an investment of $2,000, $4,000 for a machine, buy the book.
For sure. You need to have a guide to go with it so you know what to do.
Like $19 or $24 or something like that. So you're going to make a big investment, get the book, educate yourself, inform yourself, and then you can make an informed decision and not waste money. Because some of these whole body magnetic systems that are that are one Gauss are $5,000.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you're definitely getting a lot more for your money getting an actual PEMF machine.
Get the right one.
You want quality. You really want quality when we're talking devices like this. And I feel like with anything in the holistic health space, you get what you pay for. And so, you really want to do your homework and make sure you've got the right piece of equipment and the guide to go with it.
And the guide and the support. So when people contact us, if they buy through us, then we support them in their purchase. We guide them on how to use it, get the best results, and then we continue to be available as they need, over time.
Yeah. Well, I love this. This has been great. So great to get to meet you and to chat with you, Dr. Pawluk. And I really hope that it's been, eye-opening for all of our listeners, one more just tool for those that are interested to learn more about, and know that, if someone's dealing with health stuff and you haven't tried this yet, it's a really, really good opportunity that could be potentially a life-changing thing for them. So thank you again so much.
And often life-saving.
Yes, I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.